I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things. Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. Think about it. The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing. The show goes on!
It's Wednesday night and fantasy football is on the agenda. Grab a seat and let's get down to business. It's time for the Fantasy Boardroom. Here's your host, Tycoon.
And welcome to the Fantasy Boardroom. As always, I am your host, Tycoon, and we are live from cold and rainy Southern California. Oh, chilly here in the office tonight doing the show. I have the long sleeve. It's rare. Half the time I got to turn on the AC just for it to be cool enough in here to do the show, not sweat my ass off while we're talking. This week, do not have to wing it. Do not have to go live through DraftKings to discuss spreads and form opinions on the fly. I was able to properly prepare this week. Life is settling back down a little bit, of course, before we get into heavy holiday season. Excuse me, here in a couple of weeks. So I am excited and ready to get down to business. And let's do it. We are here with the first game, the Thursday night special. We finally have a good matchup on Thursday night. Thank the football gods. Although somehow it'll follow the trend of unders and it will be a dud, I am sure. Gross. No, I'm quite optimistic. We have the Bengals traveling to Baltimore to face the Ravens. The Ravens are minus 175 favorites on the money line, minus 3.5 on the spread, and the over-under is set at 46 for this seemingly potentially explosive matchup. From a fantasy perspective, this is one where you will start Burrow, you will start Chase, you will start Boyd as Higgins will not be playing. Lamar Jackson on the Ravens side, Gus Edwards. I would throw Keaton Mitchell in there this week as well, Zay Flowers, and of course, Mark Andrews. I'm kind of 50-50 on Joe Mixon with buys. You probably don't have, two other strong running backs ready to start in place of him. But if you're in a position to where he might be your flex, I look for better options. I would not start Tanner Hudson, Drew Sample, Irv Smith, any of the Cincinnati tight ends, nor would I start Justin Hill, Odell Beckham Jr., nor Rashad Bateman. Those are your sits. As far as bets go in this one, there's nothing that stands out in this particular matchup. What's out on props is actually pretty light even for a Wednesday, so we're probably not really going to have any of those. Maybe a little bit of lean on some of the games, but as far as the props go, those are going to have to wait. Check out the Discord below, follow the link into the server, and you'll be able to stay up to date on all prop picks and any other picks that may come between now and then. No EPL this week, international break. We move to Sunday. Speaking of international, there are no more international games, no more 6:30 a.m. Pacific wake-up calls for us here out on the West Coast. But we do get Cowboys and Panthers, the Cowboys on the road, to kick off the main slate here at 10 a.m. Pacific on Sunday. Cowboys are prohibitive favorites at minus 575 on the money line, 10.5-point favorites, massive, and over under a 42.5. Start all the Cowboys, start Dak, start Lamb, start Cooks, start Ferguson. Reluctantly, still probably start Tony Pollard. Losing a lot of faith. I almost had him as a sit here, but it's somewhat like Mixon. You probably don't have two other better options, and this is quite a plus matchup for him. So now if Pollard can't do anything here, I'm just out, I guess. He's not doing a damn thing. And on the Panther side, with Frank Reich calling plays again, I am once again confident in Adam Thielen, although I never really quite lost it just due to the receiver situation there in Carolina, and even with Bryce Young not looking so hot. I think it'll be dialed back up towards Thielen again. And Chuba Hubbard has massively outtouched Miles Sanders. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he has seized that role. He is RB1 over Sanders. He is going to get the volume. Don't suspect Bryce Young is going to have a lot of success in this game. Hubbard probably not going to be very efficient, but the volume should get him into startable territory. And on the sit side, you can sit Gallup, you can sit Bryce Young, Miles Sanders, Hayden Hurst. Not much in the way on the Panther side. And yeah, Michael Gallup, forget the third option here. Cooks over Gallup currently for fantasy. And Bryce Young, just not startable currently. So we move. We have the resurgent Raiders, as resurgent as a team often is under an interim coach with a midseason firing. However, they got to play the two New York teams. The degree of difficulty raises massively here as they head to Miami, where the Dolphins are even more prohibitive favorites than the Cowboys over the Panthers at minus 750 here on the money line. Minus 13.5 is the spread. Over under set at 46.5. This is a game where I do expect Miami to, quite frankly, dominate, though. I have zero faith in Aiden O'Connell going in and putting up a strong performance down there in Miami. With that said, you can still start the two studs in Jacobs and Adams without hesitation on the Raiders side. I know it hasn't been so hot for Adams either, but this really, really has the feel of a game where O'Connell's just going to have to really lean on the big boy, and he's going to get peppered with targets. And if you are in a tight spot, Myers, I think, will be flex worthy if buys, have you in a tough spot this week again. That's very situational, of course. I mean, yeah, I've got him as probably a low end 3, high end 4. Actually, probably not even a low end 3. It's probably a high end 4 this week. I don't really love the switch from Garoppolo to O'Connell for Jacoby Myers fantasy purposes. So with caution, I guess. Desperate flex. Definitely sittable on a good team. Tua is startable on the Dolphin side. Raheem Mostert, Devon A-Chain. I am willing to roll the dice here in the first game back, considering it is the Raiders. And then, of course, Tyreek Hill, no doubt, and Jalen Waddle. Sitting will simply be Aiden O'Connell, Michael Mayer, probably Jacoby Myers, and Jeff Wilson. Forget Jeff Wilson with A-Chain back in the fold. Not that he was doing anything anyway in his return to the lineup. All right, on to the next game. We have an NFC North showdown with the Lions hosting the Bears at Ford Field. The Lions are, once again, another prohibitive favorite, minus 410 on the money line. Minus 8 is the spread, over under 48. At least we expect some points, partially because I think we have Justin Fields back in the fold per Coach Matt Eberflus today. So that'll certainly make it more entertaining. I've seen enough of Tyson Bagent. Kid ain't it. At least we'll get to hopefully see Fields the rest of the way and see what the Bears decide to do with the direction of their team with him. Even in this game, with Fields back, I'm not rushing to play him here on the road here in Detroit. So on the Bears side, I'm willing to start DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. That's where I'm leaving it. On the Lions side, Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta, all the usual suspects. Fire them up for the Lions. As mentioned, I'm not really rushing to start Fields here in this first week back. So I would sit Fields. I would sit the Bears running backs in this matchup as well, including Khalil Herbert. This could really be messy, especially if they try to ease him back in the way they did with Roshan. So I want no part of that. And on the Lions side, the two Reynolds, Josh and Craig, you can go ahead and sit those guys. Ooh, now what is possibly like a sneaky, might be one of the sneakiest big fantasy matchups on this entire slate. The Cardinals travel to Houston to face the surprisingly strong Texans, who are big favorites here, minus 230 on the money line, minus 5 is the spread at home for Houston. And the over-under is 48.5, the highest that we've seen so far, and I think the highest on the slate. And this is one where you are really going to start damn near everybody, even for the Cardinals. You're going to start Kyler in this one. No fear about. I was a little concerned he might be gun shy as far as his rushing goes in this first game back. That wasn't the case. Ripped off a big run, I think, on the first drive last week. So Kyler's good to go for all intents and purposes as it relates to fantasy. James Conner, if he's active, he's simply the workhorse there in Arizona. So go ahead and start him up. He'll be startable based on volume alone. Hollywood Brown, I am comfortable with. Trey McBride, yes. Michael Wilson is a desperate flex, potentially. Officially a sit, but again, in a desperate situation, I would throw him in there. And on the Texan side, Stroud, Singletary and Pierce is interesting. Pierce is going to be back. I don't know, it's probably going to be, honestly, I expect a pretty good split. I'm not eager to start either of them. But Tank Dell, Noah Brown, fire him up. Sit Mike Wilson, sit Rondale Moore, sit Nico Collins this week. I would sit Dalton Schultz this week. And I would also sit, Singletary and Pierce. It's just going to be a passing show. I'm not optimistic for these running backs this week. Kind of like Chicago, just going to be messy as far as distribution goes. And we got season in the house. What's good, Tycoon? What is good season? Welcome aboard, my boy. We're just going through the games here. Just wrapping up the Cardinals and Texans, which you look at that preseason, looks disgusting, but it's going to be an awesome game fantasy-wise for us this week. What's going to be not so awesome, though, is the Giants and Commanders. The Commanders are massive favorites. They are, minus 455. Here on the money line. 9-point favorites against the Tommy DeVito-led Giants coming to town. Yeah, gross. No wonder they're such big favorites. I keep forgetting about DeVito. And DeVito is precisely why there will be one startable New York Giant until Tyrod Taylor returns, and that is Saquon Barkley. On the Commander side, fire up. Most of the team here. Sam Howell, Brian Robinson, sneakily the RB4 on the year. I mean, really buoyed by a couple of huge games, but it doesn't matter. Guy is certainly outperformed his ADP. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas, all of them. Giants, or sits on the Giants. Tommy DeVito, obviously. Giants wide receivers, the lot of them. Take your pick. You can sit Antonio Gibson here. I think this is, the B-Rob show. And Curtis Samuel is just fighting for scraps currently, so you can go ahead and sit him even in this favorable matchup. Titans Jaguars is what we move to next. This is an interesting one for me. Jaguars are rightfully heavy favorites here, minus 325 on the money line, a full touchdown, 7 points there on the spread, and the over-under is set at 40. So not expected to be the highest scoring of affairs, especially with a rapidly cooling rookie quarterback taking the start there for Tennessee, and with Trevor Lawrence, while the Jags as a team, they're 6-3 in a great spot. His individual performance, especially fantasy-wise, has yet to crack 20 points this year, has been underwhelming, shall we say. All that said, I would still start Trevor Lawrence here. The Titans are vulnerable through the air. I would start Travis Etienne, as the Titans' run defense has really cooled off. To start the year, it was a complete pass funnel, not so much of late. They've really been vulnerable on the ground as well. Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram as the targets, the main targets there for Trevor Lawrence. Go ahead, fire all those guys up. On the sit side, you can sit Will Levis. You can sit Derrick Henry. The Jags are very stout against the run. Sit Tyjae Spears. Sit Chig. You can sit anybody else there on the Titans. Hopkins, the only startable one. And on the Jag side, sit Calvin Ridley. Quit torturing yourself. It's not happening. It is over for Calvin Ridley this season. Chargers, Packers. Man, I wish Jordan Love was good. This would be a fun game. Although the Chargers always find a way to make sure that they are in one-score, tight, dramatic games, one way or the other. So no doubt this will at least be entertaining from a television perspective. And in terms of doubt of the outcome, that will come down to the wire here. The Chargers are favorites, minus 170, 3-point favorites on the road, over under of 44. The starts for this one, you can start Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett. Basically, anybody that can do anything through the air will be the route to go here. Although the Packers are more vulnerable against the run, that's just not how the Chargers operate. So expect Herbert to just be firing all over the place, and for the Chargers to be able to take advantage and Eckler to do well on the ground. On the Packers side, as poor as the Chargers defense is, I can only feel comfortable starting one player, and that is Aaron Jones. That's it. Can't start anybody else. So you can go ahead and sit on the Chargers side. Quentin Johnston, just give it up for this year as well, as far as I'm concerned. Jordan Love, A.J. Dillon, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. Essentially, the entire Packers side. Want no part of them. If one of them has a great day, I am more than happy to miss out. Steelers Browns. This comes on the heels of the news that Deshaun Watson is out for the season. There will be no more Deshaun. He will not be there in Cleveland this Sunday. Despite that, the Browns do remain slight favorites, minus 118 on the money line, and 1-point favorites on the spread. Let's see here. And the over-under is at 33. Woof. Kenny Pickett and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Oof. DTR getting the start. Yeah, there are not going to be a lot of points scored in this game. Very, very strong defense on the Cleveland side. I would say not necessarily a strong defense for the Steelers, but they are prone to still making big plays when they matter. So they're somewhat of a clutch defense at times. They're an effective defense. They're a splash defense. And against DTR, I think they're going to really have a chance to just take major advantage. So probably leaning on the under here. And it kind of changes the entire tone of this game for me, based on my notes from last night as I was preparing. So I kind of got to flip this around a little bit. On the Steelers side, nothing really changes. I am still willing to start only 2 players on that team this week. Jalen Warren, Deontay Johnson. Don't really want Najee. Although, again, desperate flex, Najee. He's still going to be the short yardage guy, so if they end up close inside the 5, Najee's probably going to get those carries. He'll have the chance for that short yardage touchdown, more likely. But Warren gets the receiving work, did well in that area against Cleveland in their previous matchup. 4 catches. If he can duplicate that, he'll likely outpace Najee in this game. And Deontay Johnson simply on his volume alone in PPR leagues. Not if it's a standard league. Don't want any of the receivers. Really just Jalen Warren. On the Brown side, completely changes things. And I think the only player that I'm interested in this game for the Browns now is Jerome Ford. Yeah, Jerome Ford. So go ahead and sit Pickett, sit Pickens, sit Najee. And on the Brown side, now you can sit DTR, you can sit Kareem Hunt, you can sit Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, David Njoku. Njoku, the only one of those that I might consider startable again, just due to the position. Tight end after the top, really even after the top 2-3, but really let's just say after the top 6 to 8, they're all truly just touchdown dependent. Njoku could be the beneficiary of that for a young, inexperienced QB, just leaning on a short-range, big, reliable target in David Njoku. Now we move to the game that everybody wants to hear about, certainly the one that you know I care among the most about, and that is the San Francisco 49ers hosting the Fighting Baker Mayfields, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 49ers are heavy favorites, minus 575 on the money line, after showing they are back after the complete drubbing of Jacksonville. Walking into Jacksonville on a 3-game losing streak, facing Jacksonville there in Jacksonville, who were on a 5-game winning streak, and dominating in every single facet of the game. So, facing another Florida team here This time in our own barn, the odds makers are showing some respect. So 575 money line favorites, minus 12 is the spread. Woof. And the over under is set at 41.5. Wow, wow, wow. They're not expecting Tampa Bay to do much on offense here, and frankly, neither am I. I do think this will be a big 49ers win. 12 points is a lot of points. I don't know if they'll quite cover that. That said, fire up all of the 49ers. Start Purdy, start CMC, start Debo, start Ayuk, and start George Kittle. On the Buccaneers side, I'm going to start the big two, the receiving duo. The 49ers can still be had a little bit through the air. It'll be a negative game script for Tampa Bay most of this afternoon. Baker's going to have to just keep firing. Statistically, the Godwin and Evans will come down with probably something useful. I don't think we'll shut out Tampa. One of them will probably score. I'm willing to throw them in their particular roles. Fire them up at receiver. Sitting, no 49ers, but sit Baker, sit Rachaad White in this game. The Niners have not been particularly stout against the run season long, but when they show up and stop it in an individual game, they do so in a big way. Tampa Bay might be the worst rushing team in the league. Zero belief that Rashaad's going to be able to do anything on the ground. In PPR, you could probably still fire him up. I'm sure he'll get still some usual dump ups. He'll get 3 to 5 receptions in all likelihood. I don't think he'll be particularly efficient or productive with those, but at least collect the free PPR points. But keep expectations very much limited, and certainly look to fire up better options. Staying in the NFC West, traveling down the state to Los Angeles, we go to the Rams hosting the Seattle Seahawks. This is a very, very tight matchup here as Vegas sees it. Seahawks a very, very slight road favorites, I apologize, at minus 115 on the money line, 1 point favorites, over under a 46. With Matthew Stafford back in tow, points are expected. Historically, we know that the Rams own the Seahawks. I kind of think they're going to win again. I think the Rams are going to win. Yeah, I just do. I mean, Stafford tore him up through for over 300 yards without Cooper Kupp in week 1. So with Kupp back in tow, especially off the bye week, rested, fresh, nice. Puka Nacua very much integrated into this offense at this point. The shine has fallen off the Seahawks defense a bit after early, from weeks 2 to 6, 2 to 7, they were getting a lot of praise. No, they're very vulnerable. They are ripe for the picking for Stafford to come back and do work with his top 2 receivers, especially with Kyren Williams still out. Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman there will be manning the backfield. Hendo more the receiving back, so they'll have an opportunity to do something. Yeah. So in this game, I would start Stafford, Kupp, and Puka. I would actually stay away from that backfield. And I would even start Tyler Higbee in this one. On the Seahawks side, I would start Kenneth Walker, Tyler Lockett, and DK is flexible. I would still start DK in the flex. I would sit Geno. I would sit Zach Charbonnet. I would sit Hendo and Freeman. And I would sit Tutu Atwell. But I will make probably the only official pick of the show. LA Rams, minus 105 on the money line. And actually, I'm also going to take the over in this game, over 46 at minus 112. Rams win over. Points. Their defense still sinks Geno, and then we'll do something. But the Rams will be victorious. And then we close out the afternoon slate here on Monday with the struggling Buffalo Bills hosting the New York Jets in lovely Western New York. Minus 305, the Bills are favored on the money line. Full touchdown favorites, minus 7. Kind of unreal that they continue to be favored by a touchdown in matchups like this, given all that's happened in the last few weeks. They fired their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, because, he was responsible for 12 men on the field at the end of that game, costing them the win. He was responsible for Josh Allen's interceptions. He was responsible for the fumbles. Yeah, that was all Ken Dorsey. Christ. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest Kent Dorsey fan or anything. Don't get me wrong, not by any stretch. I don't necessarily think it was working particularly great under him. I mean, the offense has not looked cohesive since early last year, really. Still getting things done because of elite talent that they have, but it eye test is just it was off. Without big plays between from Allen and Diggs, couldn't really do much. That said, they do still deserve to be big favorites over the Jets, particularly with Zach Wilson still starting. Uh, Perhaps this shift in getting rid of the coordinator just jolts some life into the team, gets a little people straight, so to speak. Although we got Stephon Diggs' brother Trayvon out there trying to stir up drama there on the internet, saying that they got to get 14 up out of there and that 17 Josh Allen wasn't good until bro got there. Without Diggs coming out and saying anything to defend his quarterback or reiterate, his commitment to the team or anything like that, it is kind of like, raises an eyebrow, So the state of the Bills is just weird. Weird vibes going on around it. But they should still handle business. They certainly should win, deserve to be favored. And you should still start Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs in every league. You should also start Kincaid without question at this point. He is an every week starter. And this week, I would start James Cook. If the Jets have any weakness on defense, it is against the run. And on the sit side, and on the start side for the Jets, you can start Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Those are pretty much going to be the only two guys you can start from them all year, and you start those guys every week. You can sit Zach Wilson, Ty Conklin, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir. All the ancillary players in this one have no use, so go ahead and skip them. Weirdo if they win that game, all is fine and Dorsey has a job. Yeah, no, exactly. That's why it's such a stupid move to me. If they don't have Tillman on the field, he gets to keep his job, but because they can't count, McDermott can't get the right personnel on the field at the right time. Oh, Dorsey, the offensive coordinator's got to go? Ridiculous. Hey, don't be late, Rasta. You're always welcome. Better late than never, as I always say. Although, I don't like to be late either. Can't do it. But, welcome. Glad to have you as always, although we are wrapping up here soon, but you are going to be here for the primetime games, the money games, and one of them is actually good. So Thursday and Monday, really solid. Really lucky. And Season saying what up to ain't. So, let's get to those. The first, Vikings and Broncos. Before last week's games, not quite as attractive to me, I guess I would say, but after last week's games, another Broncos win. Josh Jobs still doing Josh Jobs things. I think that's got a little bit of juice. Things are starting to come together for the Broncos. They really have not been as bad as I think public perception is. The 70-point game against Miami is, sticks out like a sore thumb, obviously, but they've really rounded into form, beat the Chiefs, beat the Bills. They're looking good right now. I think it's finally getting together over there in Denver. And as such, they are 2.5-point favorites at home, minus 135 on the money line versus the Vikings. And 42.5 is the total on the over-under. So in this game, I would start Josh Dobbs, Ty Chandler, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. It's starting everybody, man. I think that 42.5 total is sweet. I think it's going to go over. I think we are going to see a lot of points here, and I am excited for most of these players. Really just sitting the extras. Brandon Powell, Samaje P. Ryan, Marvin Mims, those guys, forget about them. No need. Jaleel McLaughlin, forget it. So yeah, this one's got some juice. I think it's gonna be a really, really, really good game. And I like that, Denver is only minus 2.5. It's a full 3 at home there on the spread. I think that's indicative of how close I think that's going to be, and perhaps if the Dobbs magic is going to stay alive. Do I think Michael Carter cut helps Breece Hall get more usage on third down, or would they roll with Izzy? Rookie's not really trusted with pass blocking is what I assume you meant. Yeah, pass pass blocking usually. So, correct. Could also be Cook. I wouldn't call him a plus receiver by any means, but decent enough receiver, can block. I could just see some of that shifting more to Cook than Brees getting much more. It'll probably be split between Brees and Cook. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of Izzy. No. I think Carter committed a bad penalty on that last drive. I think is really why he ended up getting cut. But I don't think it's going to change anything in any significant way for Brees, Michael Carter's departure. No. And we move to the final game of the week, the Monday night special. We have a Super Bowl rematch. We have the Chiefs in Kansas City hosting those nasty, dirty birds, the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Chiefs, as of this time, are minus 148 on the money line. Standard 3-point favorites at home, and 45.5 is the point total. Over under. Ooh. I think that's going to be right there. That's a sharp line. Woo-wee. So, what's interesting about this one is obviously it's a great game. We've got two top-tier teams. Again, a Super Bowl rematch. Both teams still flying high in terms of their records. But I think anybody who's watched both these teams a significant amount this year feels like neither team is really all the way there yet, which is kind of scary considering what they're 8-1 and 7-2. But my goodness, this is the Eagles have been they're giving up passing yards left and right. They can't stop a cold in that regard. And while the offense is scoring, a lot of it's just AJ Brown making big ass plays because he's great and he's AJ Brown. But there's been a lot of tush push. The Swift's playing well, the offensive line's playing well, but like the offense seems to lack fluidity and cohesion and just consistency, I think is probably the best way to put it. It just feels like they have not really come into form this year. Same thing for the Chiefs. The defense is actually playing great. This is probably the first time in the Mahomes era we could say the defense is better than the offense. And the offense, I mean, yeah, Mahomes and Kelsey are still doing their thing, but there's really, and Pacheco has certain games where he's especially effective. Angry runner, everybody loves it. But again, the offense is really not clicking. It's not really there. So I'm really curious to see how that plays out this week. I think the Eagles' offense has been performing better, but they're going up against a better defense. And yeah, while the Eagles have been strong against the run, they've been very poor against the pass. But Mahomes, apart from Kelsey, is not really. And I guess Rashee Rice has picked it up in recent weeks, but even still, nothing major. So it's kind of interesting to see what's going to give. Really curious. Does Mahomes just whip out the Mahomes magic and able to just make it work with anybody, given how poor the Eagles' pass defense has been? Can Hurts overpower the strong Kansas City defense? My hunch is that Mahomes and the boys will find a way to handle business at home. They will beat the Eagles again, as they did in the Super Bowl. I do think it will be a close game. But I'm just not sure how the script is going to go. So, but it doesn't matter. We're here to talk fantasy. Fantasy-wise, this is, again, a start-free and everybody game because there will be points. I'm confident in that. Start Hurts, start Swift, start A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. Start Patrick Mahomes, start Pacheco, start Kelsey, and yes, I would start Rashee Rice. I almost just play maybe a DFS tournament kind of thing. This might be an MVS situation as well. Just going to catch one of those deep bombs. Should be dirt cheap on DraftKings, FanDuel. Something like that's going to happen in this game. Sit Kenny Gainwell, though. This is Swift's backfield. And I would sit Sky Moore, as really there's no receiver outside of Rice that I'd be comfortable starting for the Chiefs. Really going to be, Kelsey and Rice. Forget Sky Moore. And a reminder that any of these lines, we didn't go over any props, so that won't be applicable, but any game lines that we discussed are courtesy of DraftKings. Due to the lack of props currently available, we did not get into any of those. So again, please make sure you go to the Discord link below, join the server so you can keep up to date on prop picks. And if you are new to any of these sites, Underdog, Prize Picks, or Sleeper, please make sure you use my code in order to take advantage and get a 100% deposit match. In the case of Underdog, use code ROGUE, get a $100% deposit match on up to your first $100 deposited. The exact same scenario for Prize Picks, code ROGUE, 100% deposit match on your first 100. And on Sleeper, use code RF-FF_Tycoon, and that will get you a 100% deposit match on your first $25. And Sleeper's interesting because there's different multipliers based on the pick, so fun to play around with. Sometimes you can get even better odds with your picks there than you can on the other sites. That wraps up another week of the Fantasy Boardroom. So with that, let's win together, and this meeting of the Fantasy Boardroom is adjourned.